Good evening. So, what I would like you to do for the next minute or so is a thought exercise with me. I want you to think about the people in your lives that matter to you, your friends, your families, maybe your colleagues. I want you to think about what draws you to those people, those relationships. Think about the people that you rely on when you face challenges in your life. Why do you rely on those people? What is it about those relationships that are meaningful to you? Why do you think you can rely on them? I'm going to venture a guess. I'm going to imagine that these are people with whom you've probably spent some time. You've been investing in that relationship. I'm also going to venture a guess that you have deep respect for this person and they respect you. And I hope that these are also people that are trustworthy and with whom you have a trusting relationship. And finally, I would guess that these are not relationships that are just momentary. They're not friends that you want just for this week or this month or maybe even this year, but these are friends, these are family members, colleagues in some cases, I hope, with whom you really want to have a long-term relationship with. So I say all this because when we think about global climate challenges and the crisis that we're all facing, I think at times, and I know I'm definitely, I wouldn't say guilty of this, but I definitely feel overwhelmed by this, that sometimes it does feel overwhelming. And yet, what we know is that increasingly it's local, collaborative, cooperative solutions that are becoming more common, more effective. And these local solutions that are collaborative are built on all of those principles that we just talked about. When collaborative efforts work, it's because people trust each other. They've invested in those relationships. They believe that they have a common purpose. They might not always agree, right? Think about the people you care about. Do you always agree with them? Do you sometimes have disagreements? Sure. And yet, you continue to invest in that relationship because you have a common purpose. You have mutual affection, maybe. Or again, it may just be that you have so much respect for each other that you don't want to let that relationship go. So when we think about climate solutions, I want us to start thinking about sort of these local initiatives. And this is where universities really have a role and an opportunity to be part of the solution. There are over 28,000 universities throughout the world, over 4,000 of them in this country alone. And most universities, they have a public mission. We exist to serve the public good in some way. Penn State University, a Research One, land-grant institution, has that very explicit purpose of essentially serving the public through exemplary teaching, research, and service to the community. So I just want to talk to you today about some of the ways in which the university, where you are right now, we are in Penn State Brandywine specifically, but Penn State and other universities like this, I'd like to discuss some of the ways in which we are trying and hopefully successfully cooperating with communities and creating true collaborative partnerships to help address climate change. So one initiative that I want to bring to your attention is something we call Invent Penn State. So President Barron has invested, I should say his initiative has caused Penn State to invest over $30 million over the last 5 years in community-based innovation hubs. So essentially these are spread throughout the state of Pennsylvania. We have 21 innovation hubs. And we seek to work with local entrepreneurs and oftentimes social entrepreneurs who are addressing some of our deepest global problems. And already, just in the last 5 years, we've already seen products, businesses begin to flourish that are creating innovative, very promising solutions to help us tackle aspects of climate change. I'll give you one example. We've already heard about toilets, the lack of toilets. But toilets also involve a lot of water, right? Think about how much water we use just to flush a single toilet. Well, one of these entrepreneurs that has been working with one of our innovation hubs has developed a new coating that goes on toilets. And this toilet coating basically makes these toilets virtually self-cleaning and basically means that it needs about half as much water to flush each time. That might not sound really exciting, may not be sexy, it's maybe not even good dinner talk. And yet, everybody flushes a toilet who has access to one, right? Think about all of that water just in this part of the world where we do have access to toilets. How much water is being utilized? And this is just one example. I also want to bring up the Sustainability Institute. Now, universities throughout this country, especially, again, large research-one land-grant institutions like Penn State, we have resources and we have a commitment to our communities. And so we have a Sustainability Institute that works with local communities to help them address and identify challenges they're facing at a local level related to climate change. One of their initiatives is the Sustainable Communities Collaborative, SCC for short. So what does the SCC do? Well, the SCC uses a model that is very common in universities. They basically create what we call community-engaged learning courses. So there's a community member that has an identified problem. Usually it's something that can be addressed in a course. So there's a project that can be used. And then they connect that community member or organization with a course and a faculty member. And so it's the students, the faculty member, and the community partner in collaboration that develop solutions together to that problem. So this is just one example. The SCC was created in 2013. They've already worked on over 300 projects spread throughout the state of Pennsylvania. Here's an example of where a community partner has a water waste treatment plant. And it costs a lot of money to run this plant. So they approached the SCC and said, do you have a course that could help us reimagine this? Look at our existing assets and how we might be able to reuse land, develop some new technologies, and then essentially lower our costs for running this particular water treatment plant. And so this particular class, they did some analysis, a feasibility study, and some preliminary designs to create solar panels that will actually be placed on a substation where there are already power lines. And so there's a wonderful win-win here, right? If they are able to develop these solar panels there's already a method of actually getting that energy out. And if they have too much of it, they might even be able to lease some of it. It's a wonderful opportunity. And so these students were at really that ground level of research and understanding of, is there an actual feasible option here? And now another phase of this is that one of our Penn State Extension offices is now going to actually look at what would it take to implement this solar panel project. All right, so there are other ways that beyond this particular class, within the Penn State ecosystem, we are scaling up these solutions. So we are at Penn State Brandywine, and we have a Center for Ethics and Civic Engagement. I'm the director of this center, and it is my absolute privilege to be able to work with students and faculty and community members with the hope that through the activities that the center provides, our students will emerge after 4 years as active citizens who understand enough about themselves, have engaged in enough experiential learning opportunities that they feel empowered to make positive changes in the world. So we engage with community partners, and this truly is a privilege for me to be able to work with communities, to be able to build those partnerships and support them. And when we think about our community partnerships, who do we partner with? We partner with nonprofits, public agencies, schools, sometimes other universities. And typically, our programming, our partnerships have a sustainability focus. When I say sustainability, I'm referring to the Sustainable Development Goals. Those 17 goals: no poverty, reducing inequalities, climate action. We've heard talk of many of these different SDGs tonight. So we create these partnerships, and we hope that students, by joining our center, reaching out into the community, and taking advantage of some of these opportunities to volunteer, to intern, sometimes even work in the community with these partners, that they will begin to get a sense of who they are, a sense of how they can be change makers, right? Agents of change in communities no matter where they are. So here are just some examples that I'll close with. So we work with, for example, the Rose Valley Environmental Advisory Council. Our students have supported initiatives from cleanups to supporting their native plant sale, wildlife preserve, cleanup days, the photo of them working in the community. Our students help protect our local waterways by working with different organizations to help clean up our waterways. Here are some pictures of our students working on our own campus garden. I think some of you might recognize yourselves in these photos. Our campus garden is a wonderful resource. It's a teaching opportunity. It's also, quite directly, a source of food. Our students have direct access to it. They can understand how their food is grown, and it can also support our students who are facing food insecurity. And I'm going to finally lead with fair trade. So media is America's first fair trade community. We've been working with this particular committee for at least a decade now. And it was actually this connection with this fair trade committee that enabled a group of students back in 2012 to be fair trade trailblazers. It was a student initiative that enabled us to become the only Penn State Fair Trade designated university. So why is fair trade significant? What does that have to do with climate change? Well, fair trade, first of all, is a certification process that makes sure that the products and the ingredients that are used are ethically sourced, meaning that people engaged in the labor to develop those products, create them from the ground, that they're paid fairly. We know that those engaged in fair trade practices ensure that women are treated fairly, children in those communities are treated fairly, and then, quite frankly, it's farmers in the global south who are disproportionately impacted by climate change. They are on the front lines of climate action or climate change. And so as members of the Fair Trade Network, they're guaranteed income. And so that income enables these farmers some autonomy. It enables them to choose how to best deal with the climate-specific challenges to their communities. And so I want to leave with this. If you are a student, and I know there are students here, some of you are my students, get involved. Your universities, no matter where you are, have initiatives. You may not be aware of all of them. There are some people in this room that may not have known that we had these community hubs called Invent Penn State, for example, right? There are so many ways in which universities are truly developing out those partnerships. And these are partnerships that are there for the long term. Most universities are embedded in their communities. They want to be here. We want real relationships. So students, find those opportunities and get involved. And if you're a Penn State Brandywine student, come talk to me. If you are somebody who works in a university setting, a faculty member, a staff member, whether it's Penn State or any other university, discover those opportunities to connect with your communities. You'd be amazed at the kinds of assets and resources and knowledge and cultural knowledge of communities that can really inform your own work and also what you can then bring to those communities too. Just remember to do it with humility. Mm-hmm. And then finally, if you're not part of any kind of university system, I can guarantee you probably live near one. As I said, there are at least 4,000 universities in the United States alone. You can't throw a rock and stone in some places and not hit one. Mm-hmm. Get involved with your communities there too, because, as I said, we have people like me who want to connect campuses and communities together. And when we do that, and I will leave with this final statement, which is, I truly hope that through these campus community partnerships, we develop collaborative solutions that really also center equitable, and I'm going to say that again, equitable societies for all. Thank you.